The Octa Research Group says there's a higher percentage of people dying from COVID-19 in NCR compared to some months ago. Some good news though, the research team observes a slight dip in COVID-19 transmission across the capital. Malacanang spells out the do's and don'ts on the first day of the less stringent modified ECQ and NCR Plus. Local pork prices are feared to soar up to 500 pesos a kilo once the bulk of pork imports arrive in the market. And in lighter news, a tech company in Singapore introduces grocery robots to keep up with the demand for home deliveries. Focused and fearless, here's a roundup of stories we're watching now. I'm Riza Diaz. The Octa Research Group reports a higher COVID-19 death rate in Metro Manila compared to some months ago. Let's talk about this more with research fellow Professor Guido David. Sir, good evening.
Yes, hi, good evening, Riza.
Sir, what exactly are the numbers and do we know the demographics of these recent deaths?
Yes, actually, we do, Riza. What we're seeing is that the case fatality rate has actually increased in NCR. As of October, it was around 1.8%. And as of yesterday, it was up to around 2.02%. So there's a slight increase, and this is in NCR. And well, of course, what we're seeing is that the demographic age group from 65 and above are dying at a 12% clip. And then for the seniors from 60 to 64, they are dying at a 6% clip. But it's much lower, of course, for people aged 0 to 17 and 18 to 54, it's less than 1% for those groups.
Sir, Octa also reported that a reproduction rate in NCR has slightly decreased. How big of a decrease in number are we talking about? And is this significantly enough to indicate a downward trend in infections?
The decrease in the reproduction number is actually significant. At the start of the ECQ, it was 1.88. Before the ECQ, and as of yesterday, it's 1.23. This is a significant decrease, and that's pushing the momentum of the virus down. However, it doesn't mean that the numbers are already on a downward trend. In fact, they're still slightly increasing overall, although there are already several LGUs in Metro Manila, which are on a downward trend. That includes Pasay, Marikina, and I think Mandaluyong. Some LGUs are having a negative growth rate, a one-week growth rate, but this does not guarantee that it's on a downward trend, because it just means that the numbers this week are lower compared to last week. But because the decrease is very slight, it could be due to the effects of delayed testing or reduced testing during the holidays.
Sir, the group also reported that the number of tests in the past week is lower than the average prior to ECQ. How do you think this affects the figures?
Well, it affects the figures because it skews the numbers in a way. Because we're seeing, there are days when we're seeing low numbers like 6, 7, 8,000, and then there are days when we're seeing higher numbers due to the testing delays and the backlog. So we're seeing 11,000 cases. We saw that yesterday and today. We're expecting a decrease in numbers tomorrow and Wednesday. This is natural. Also, the testing has basically resumed to capacity. So we're testing close to 30,000 for the past few days. So in terms of, well, we had those backlogs, but I think we're clearing them up now. And we're really getting the clearer picture now. And hopefully by the end of the week, we're projecting that by the end of the week or by next week, our reproduction number will be less than 1. That means we will be possibly on a downward trend already.
Sir, what do you think is needed for us to go back to the 1,000 to 2,000 daily cases like before?
Fortunately, Risa, it will take some time before we get to those numbers. Even when we get to a downward trend, um, starting from 10,000 cases, it will take us at least maybe 2 or 3 months to get to to 1,000 to 2,000 cases like what we were seeing before. Right now, the good news is that the NCR has slowed down the pandemic, but the bad news is that it's still increasing in some regions outside the NCR, and hopefully the quarantine classifications will help curb the increase in these areas.
Sir, Guido, over the weekend we had infectious disease expert Dr. Ronchin Solantes saying the shift of the NCR Plus to MECQ is premature. Do you agree?
Well, part of our recommendation was we could shift to an MECQ, and we actually supported the shift to MECQ. For one thing, the reproduction number is already close to 1, so we think that it will not take much to get the reproduction number to less than 1. Having said that, we have read the specifications of the MECQ, and it's actually a lot less restrictive than we expected. And we are in the process of calibrating our recommendations regarding the MECQ because, in a way, this is the MECQ that we're getting is not quite what we were expecting.
So how do you think, sir, this MECQ will impact the overall COVID-19 trend, and what are your current projections given the presence of more variants and other factors?
Well, the variants are really a concern. Hopefully the MECQ will still be enough to slow down the trend. We did see that during the GCQ bubble, it was slowing down the trend somewhat, but the ECQ was more effective in reducing the reproduction number. But if we imagine that we're returning to something close to a GCQ bubble that we had 2 weeks ago, then it will still cause the reproduction number to decrease, but it will happen more slowly. If that happens, it could take us maybe 2 weeks or even 3 weeks to get the reproduction number to less than 1. We're hoping it will do it faster than that. Currently, we don't have projections yet. We're still examining the specifications of the new MECQ, but more or less our estimate is what I said. We're expecting maybe in 2 weeks that the reproduction number will go below 1. When that happens, the cases will stabilize and start on a downward trend. So it means that we'll still be seeing big numbers like 10, 11,000 cases per day for the next 2 weeks.
Sir Guido, you mentioned that outside NCR, you're seeing also upticks in other provinces. What are these areas, and are there hotspots other than Metro Manila as of today?
Well, the main hotspot outside NCR Plus, of course, we're also seeing increases in Batangas and Pampanga, but the main hotspot would be in Santiago, in Isabela. Benguet is also fairly hot because of high hospital occupancy and high positivity rate. So there are some areas, but we're also seeing upticks in several regions, even in the Ilocos region, in La Union, for example, even in the Bicol regions. But these upticks are at a lower scale, so they're not really concerning yet. We're just noticing that there are upticks that are starting to happen in other places, and hopefully they can curb these upticks before they become full-blown outbreaks.
Sir, but as the restrictions are eased, mobility is expected to increase. What are your suggestions for activities with high foot traffic, such as ayuda distribution?
Oh, well, Ayuda distribution is problematic because it could be a super spreader event, and we have seen already some instances where the Ayuda distribution, um, well, involved a lot of people clustering in places. And part of our recommendation is to review the Ayuda system. I think some LGUs are doing it, are distributing it, by going house to house. I don't know if that is possible with other LGUs. Uh, we don't know the limitations of each LGU, so we cannot really comment as a whole. But I think the LGUs should definitely examine, the process by which they distribute ayuda.
As always, thank you, sir, for your time and for your insights. That's Professor Guido David of the Octa Research Group. Let's take a quick look now at the MECQ guidelines for Metro Manila and nearby provinces. Movement is limited to those accessing essential goods and services, those working on-site in permitted industries, and APORs or authorized persons outside of residence. Those not within age 18 to 65 group, persons with comorbidities, and pregnant women are required to stay at home. Now, under MECQ, all modes of transportation are allowed to operate. Outdoor exercises are allowed as long as it is within your general area of residence. Now, any gathering outside your immediate household is also not allowed. Metro Manila mayors have agreed to move the unified curfew hours to 8 p.m. to 5 in the morning. Now, religious gatherings are now allowed at 10% capacity, but LGUs can increase it up to 30%. Now, here are industries allowed to operate under MECQ. Dental, medical, and veterinary clinics are allowed in full capacity. Banks, those working under water supply and janitorial or sanitation services, and those part of the energy sector are also allowed. Internet, cable, and other telecom companies, vehicle and other machinery maintenance, and security personnel licensed by the PNP are also allowed. Printing establishments, funeral and embalming services, and lawyers who will provide legal representation are likewise allowed under MECQ. Local pork prices may soar to 500 pesos a kilo once the bulk of pork imports arrive in the market. While retailers are now resorting to selling imported pork, most consumers still prefer the local variety. Shaila Francisco with the report.
Higher production costs and limited supply continue to drive up prices of local pork in wet market, with local hog raisers expecting an increase of 20 to 30 pesos a kilo starting this week. Over in Muñoz Market in Quezon City, prices of liempo have already gone up to 420 pesos a kilo. Hog raisers and retailers fear it could even go as high as 500 pesos due to increased pork imports at lower tariff.
Aatras ang marami magbababoy at diyan siguradong tataas ang presyo ng lokal dahil titigil ng pag-aalaga ang mga magbababoy. Pero yan, ang epekto niyan siguro mga last quarter hanggang next year.
But some consumers say they still prefer local pork products even if prices increase further.
Mas piliin ko pa rin sariwa kaysa frozen. Mas maganda parang walang ano yun, parang natatakot ako sa frozen, parang may chemical na kasi nakalagay
Kukuntihan ko na lang ang bibilin ko kasi siyempre mahal di ba?
Opo.
So, kung ano lang yung budget ko, yun lang din.
Retailers meanwhile hope the price increase will be controlled so they can stick to selling fresh meat instead.
Pag tumaas po ng 500, lalong wala nang bibili.
Wala po kasi kinikita sa sariwa po Kaya po nagbibinta kami ng process.
Traders say the bulk of pork imports to benefit from increased volume at lower tariff will only arrive in 2 to 3 months. Aside from shipment delays and port congestion, importers are awaiting government guidelines.
And on the map naman, hindi pa naman approved unless maybe the president, unless the Department of Agriculture and the president deems that the 15-day period is over and then they are ready to declare the MAP Plus. So yun pang hinahantay po natin.
The Meat Importers and Traders Association are expecting imports to double this year. But they assure the public that this won't flood markets since some of these will be made as processed goods. For now, the Agriculture Department continues to appeal to producers not to hike pork prices, noting that they continue to provide transport assistance to bring cheaper meat in the market. Shaila Francisco, We Are One News.
Now for some light news, a tech company in Singapore is responding to the demand of home deliveries through robots. 2 robots are off to a 1-year trial period of delivering groceries to around 700 households. Customers may track their orders through a mobile app as soon as the items gets loaded. The delivery robots can carry up to 20 kilos and are equipped with 3D sensors and cameras. Now, for more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.